So with elbow pain, it is, it's kind of, it's, where am I going to start here? Hold on a second. So I kind of treat the elbow like the knee of the lower body. So the elbow is in between the wrist and the shoulder. I don't want to generalize, like this is like a short little snippet of kind of what I would look at in an assessment, but there's a lot more involved than just the elbow. That we have to look at the neck, the shoulder, the upper back, as well as the elbow and the wrist. So I'm just going to narrow it down to the elbow, wrist, and shoulder today. And next week, I'm actually going to focus a little bit more on the neck, because it's more complicated with the neck, but it is important because all the nerves in your neck come down and insert and innervate the muscles around your elbow. So with the elbow, the most basic things I want to go over today is range of motion, because if our joints can go through their full range of motion, then they feel safe. So we're gonna go over, we're gonna go over range of motion tests of the elbow, wrist, and shoulder, just a kind of couple screens, and you're just gonna do them with me and just look to see, like compare side to side, and if you feel any discomfort or tightness or stiffness, just make a little note, because then afterwards you can focus on working on those specific range of motions. So if you're limited in range of motion, it could be because of stiffness in the actual joint or something to do with the neuromuscular system. So it could be nerve or muscle that is creating tension around a joint. So without even talking about like diagnoses, like tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, whatever, I always go looking at the range of motion first, because if you can find something wrong with someone's range of motion, then it's easy to target that, because if you're limited, then it's going to put tension somewhere else. So let's say your shoulder is limited, that's going to affect the muscles above and below, which can put tension across the elbow. So what we're going to do first, everyone has their pens, 2 pens. Yes. Okay. So we don't need them right now, but just have them close by. So first, we're just going to look at the elbow range of motion. So there's 4 different directions that the elbow moves: flexion, extension, supination, pronation, and supination. So in the actual elbow, there's 3 joints. So we kind of have to break all of those movements down and see where you're tight or limited. Okay. So the first one, we actually break down the first one into 2 separate movements. So flexion with supination. So if everyone can touch their shoulders with their hands. Okay, good. Just again, pay attention as we go along if you feel restriction on either side. Okay, and then extension. So the biggest thing with extension is that you can fully straighten your arm. And we'll take a look at this when we look at your wrists, because a lot of the times wrist range of motion a lot of the times if you're limited at your wrist, you can see the limitations in the elbow. So back to elbow flexion for a second. So we're going to go palms facing away from you, and then you're going to do elbow flexion again. So you're trying to touch your shoulders. So For me, I'm a little more limited on my right side. I can easily touch my left. Okay, so just pay attention where you feel tight or stiff. Okay, and then supination and pronation. So you're going to grab your pens. Okay. Okay, I don't have my pens with me. So with this one, you want to keep your elbows tight to your side, and you're bent at 90 degrees. Okay, so you're trying to rotate as far out as you can, keeping your elbows in. So supination, and you're looking to see if your pens are equal. And then pronation is the other way, so palms down. And again, you ideally want the pens to be facing each other. So if one's kind of tilting upwards, or if they're both tilting upwards, then you're probably tight in that direction. Okay, so just make a little note to see if there's one that's worse. Okay, so we'll look at the wrist next. So do 2 easy tests to see what your wrist range of motion is like. So we're going to start like this. So we're going to look at wrist extension first. Keep your palms together and bring your wrists out like that. So you want to feel you want to see, first of all, if you're looking at yourself, you can kind of use the screen as a mirror to see, are they equal and are they in line, right? So if one's like this, you know that wrist is a little bit tighter. Look out for discomfort or stiffness when you're doing this, okay? We'll do another wrist extension one in a sec with that involves your elbow. So the flexion is this way. So you're gonna start up here, and then you're gonna go down. So this, you should feel a little bit of a stretch across here. If you feel pain, just make a note of it, and I can kind of answer any questions afterwards. But again, you should be about level there as well. Okay. So those are the main ones. There's also movements this way and this way. So that's ulnar deviation and radial deviation. So if your arms are straight, or sorry, forearms are straight, and it's just that movement there. So we have less motion going outwards, radial deviation, than we do going inwards. So I would expect that to be different, but you're just looking from left to right on yourself. Okay. Okay, and then we do a quick shoulder screen. So the movement is, it's actually 4 different movements in one. And so I look to see just generally if people can do it or not. So you're gonna take one arm and you're gonna bring it up and over. So you're trying to touch your opposite kind of upper shoulder. What people tend to do to get there is bring their heads forward. So you really want to try and see if you can keep your whole head, neck, and spine straight and still be able to get that point. So if there's, again, because it's just a screen and there's 4 movements involved, I can't tell you right now unless we kind of go into each motion. But the point is, if you can't do that movement, then there's probably something along that chain of muscles or joint that is limited. Okay, so we'll do the other side, see if you can easily touch the other side without poking your head forward or shrugging the other shoulder. That's typically what I see, is to get there, people will try to shrug. Okay, and then the other movement is behind your back. So it should be a smooth movement to get to the opposite shoulder blade. You shouldn't do this and then try to walk your hand up. It should just be one smooth movement, same with the other. So again, pay attention to see if one side feels worse than the other. Maybe make a mental note of it. And then I can do a whole other shoulder session. Make a note of that hurts too, because sometimes bringing your arm behind your back, there's a lot of pulling in the front. And just I guess like a little side note that the muscles in the shoulder, some of them come down and cross the elbow joint. So the biceps and the triceps, they're often a muscle that are ignored with muscle release. It's kind of hard to get to them, but they are quite important because they cross the shoulder and the elbow. So if you usually with like pain on the outside of the elbow, it could be, or like right on the point of the elbow, could be tension in the tricep muscle, or tension in the bicep, because that comes down into the front of the forearm. Not usually with elbow pain on the side is the bicep always involved. A lot of the times when I am like just testing like muscle tension points, there's usually spots in the tricep, and then some in the bicep, and then the forearm muscles. So with the muscle release, so we're just gonna get you to poke around a little bit. So let's have your arms straight, and you're gonna push on your tricep muscle. So you're just gonna use your thumb, and you can use the top of your hand just for support, and you're just gonna push in the tricep. So there's 3 muscle bellies in the tricep. So as you're going over, you'll probably like jump over some of them. You're looking for any tension spots. So that's right through here is kind of the muscle bulk of it, and then it attaches onto the shoulder blade. So if you bring your fingers up into the shoulder blade, right, it's kind of like right in the corner is where the tricep, one of the heads, attaches onto. Okay, so again, make a little note if there's any tension spots through there. If we come to the forearm, so the wrist extensors are on the back, and then the wrist flexors are on the front. So with your hand, you can see me okay. So you wanna, I use my 3 kind of fingers and just use my thumb to support. You can push along the muscle bellies through there. Your fingers might do a little twitch, that's okay. So you're just looking again for any tension spots in and around the front of the forearm. And then with the flexors, I'll kind of have my arm straight, but a slight bend, and then pushing along there. So there's a number of different flexors that come from one kind of point area here all the way down into your fingertips, and then same thing with the extensors all the way down to your fingertips. Another 2 muscles that typically are tight with people who have tennis elbow or lateral elbow pain is the pronator and supinator. So if you were limited in pronation or supination, you want to try and see what those muscles feel like. So the supinator is if you feel the outer bone, your ulna, if you kind of follow it from the point of your elbow along here, it'll be like a ridge of bone, and then you kind of just come off of the bone, and you'll feel like a muscle bulk, small muscle bulk. Okay, if you hold down on that spot and see if you can rotate your hand or your wrist, sometimes there can be some tight spots in through there. And then the pronator is more on the other side. It's kind of in between the 2 forearm bones. And I just use my thumb to kind of poke. It might feel the same as when you're poking your flexors, because there's lots of layers. But if you rotate, you might feel more discomfort along those spots. Okay, so again, make a little note, because we're going to go through a little sort of self-massage session with your lotion. So we're going to do forearm muscles with the lotion, and then the ball along your triceps. It's kind of hard to get the ball on the front of your bicep, so you can use your thumb or your fingers for that one. And then we'll go through just that one wrist extension test, and then we'll do the massage. So if you go down onto your hands and knees, it's a really easy test to see what your range of motion is like in your wrist and your elbow at the same time. So if your hands are planted on the floor, can you straighten your elbows, and can you turn the elbow pit, like the inside of the elbow, towards me, or just facing forward? So you're rotating at your wrist and your shoulder when you do this, but it's just a test. Can you load through your wrist and straighten your elbows at the same time? If your wrists are limited, what happens is people will usually have a slight bend. I'm exaggerating, kind of. Will have a slight bend in their elbow if they have limited like wrist mobility. So from the side, it just looks like this. So I'm turning my elbows towards the front. So just pay attention, like when you try to rotate, can you easily rotate from like in and out? And does one feel worse somewhere on either side? Like my wrist is a little tight on this side when I try to rotate, but I can straighten fully. And then just lean forward and back and see if you can load through your wrists without discomfort. There's a lot of really valuable exercises that can be done on your hands and knees. So it's important that you can load your wrists, elbows, and shoulders in this position. Okay, so for the massage, or the muscle release, however you want to think about it, you're just going to take a little bit of lotion, coconut oil, whatever you have. And so we'll do the back side of the forearm first. So you can just kind of put the lotion all across the back of your forearm. Okay, and then depending on how strong your hands are, you can either use this part of your thumb or kind of the pads of your fingers, like that. So we're just gonna do whichever one you feel more comfortable with. Rest your arm either on a table or your knee, and then you're gonna basically just apply pressure from your wrist towards your elbow. Yeah. So however that looks, if it's like this or like this, whichever feels easiest for you to do with the other hand. Okay, and then when you find a spot, usually it's in this area, kind of closer to the elbow. What you want to try to do, so we're going to do more of an active muscle release. So you're going to lift your wrist up, keep your forearm rested, and then you're going to apply pressure towards your elbow, and then you're going to drop your wrist down. So you kind of you need to be over the edge of the table just so you can go through the full range of motion. And then you let go, lift your wrist again, and then apply pressure as you move your wrist down. You can also add a bit more if you want to straighten your arm. So that puts even more tension on those wrist extensors. And then again, if I'm going this way, up and then down and straightening. Okay, So you don't want to overdo it. I usually, when I'm doing the active muscle release, I will usually do 5 to 7 passes, and then I'll just leave it, because it can be quite intense if you're pushing, you know, pretty firmly. With the other part of your forearm, same sort of thing. So you're just flipping your hand around and then doing the same thing. So you're gliding your thumb or your fingers, probably more thumb with this one, up. And then it would be the exact same principle as the other side. So you're shortening the muscle first, applying pressure, and then lengthening through there. What I've found with two things with tennis elbow, or I know I'm kind of saying diagnosis again, but elbow pain, is when I'm looking at range of motion, I will see limitations in pronation and supination. And the clients who come in with it usually either doing lots of computer work, a lot of gripping, and so what happens is that the muscles on the palm side get really tight. Even though their pain is on this side, the muscles here are tight. So it's important that you're not always just pushing on the painful spot, that you're kind of exploring around to see where else is tight or stiff. Does that make sense to everybody so far? Yeah, okay. Okay, so we'll do the bicep. So a little more lotion, and then you're just gonna rub the whole front of the arm. We'll kind of stick to the muscle belly. So the bicep comes down and attaches below the elbow on the forearm, but we're just gonna focus on the muscle belly portion of it. So same sort of thing. You're just gonna go up and down and just feel a little bit of pressure where it feels tight or stiff or sore or achy. And then when you find a spot, what you can do is shorten the muscle. So do a little bicep curl, apply pressure from like closer to your elbow, and then you're gonna push your fingers towards your shoulder as you straighten your arm. Okay. So again, you can use the pad of your thumb or more base of support, more, that's not the word I was looking for, more fingers along the muscle, so it's not so pokey. Just try to stay on it, because again, you'll pop over the muscle a little bit, so just try to find that spot, shorten the muscle, and then apply pressure towards. So it's pretty slow. I'm just going fast because we're doing lots of things, but you want to try to just move your arm fairly slow through that range of motion. Okay. With the tricep, I've used the ball. So I don't have a table right in front of me, but I'm going to use my chair. So your tricep is the muscle behind your arm. So it attaches right into kind of the elbow bony part, the bony part of the elbow. And then it attaches, the most important one that I would say is the tricep, the long head. So the one we were kind of poking at before. Again, the muscle bellies are in the upper arm. So you just want to put the ball there, and then on your table, just have your arm straight first, and just see if you can, I'll hold your arm to control it, to control your arm on the ball. And then you're just slowly rocking or gliding up along that muscle. So if you find a spot that's tight or sore, what you can do is bring your arm up towards the back of your head. Or you can try and glide your chair back so you're almost like, so your arm is almost like right above your head, and then try to do that same thing. So this would mimic this motion, that shoulder test we did. So you're just trying to find those spots. There. Okay. And then you can try both sides of that one. So the point of all this was kind of just to give you a little snippet of to show you that elbow pain is not just where the elbow is, and that there's a lot involved above and below that can play a role in elbow pain. So a thorough range of motion exam. So just if you guys do those range of motion tests again, or if you remembered which ones were tight or stiff, you can work directly just on those range of motions by just repeating the movement. So if you were stuck in, let's say, pronation this way, you could work on that, and then you could add a little bit more range of motion, let's say. So you're adding a little bit of overpressure, as long as it's not painful. Like, it might feel a little bit stiff, but you just want to try and recognize where you're limited in your motion and try to work on getting as much range of motion as possible, and then the muscles and joints will be happy. I'm just gonna or you can unmute yourselves. I don't know how to unmute everybody.